Hello everyone from cloudy Moscow. It's gonna rain a lot today, probably. It is 12 o'clock, middle of the day. Today is, of course, 26th of August. And as always, dear friends, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and public is talking about, pays attention to. And hopefully you will find this news segment informative and interesting, useful. And if so, please don't forget to like the video. And dear friends, if you are watching, some members will watch during the live stream, of course, but majority will watch after the live stream. And if this is the case, then please leave some commentary in the comment section. At least give me high five. It will count as a comment anyways, isn't it? And more comments and likes might actually influence algorithm in a positive way, and maybe at least members of our community, by the way, at least subscribers on the channels will receive notifications from the platforms, especially on the YouTube, where this shadow ban is very strict stuff, man, and they're killing independent channels, especially smaller ones. Anyways, first of all, of course, thank you all for being here, for your attention, for your time. And many thanks to everyone who will watch this video after the live stream. Let's start with a news segment. Now, after news segment, as always, I will join community chat for a little while. And if there is any questions, dear friends, that you want to address to me, or commentary that you have that you want to be highlighted, or please use capital letters. That will make it a little easier for me to spot commentary or the question, or of course during the streams, by the way, because I'm streaming simultaneously on YouTube and Rumble channels of mine. You can use a super chat feature on Rumble to make sure that your question and or the commentary is being highlighted and answer was given. Okay, that's been said, dear friends. Let me start with this report from RIA Novosti. Quite often I began with reports about work of Russian air defense systems during the night time. And today we have RIA Novosti's report, which is based on latest update from Russian Defense Ministry that overnight air defense systems on duty intercepted 43 drones that was launched by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky with assistance of number of NATO member states to strike deep into Russian territory. I can give you some specifics on that. 6 drones were intercepted in Leningrad region, and dear friends, still, I'm on a position that whenever there is a drone attacks on the Leningrad region or in the direction of St. Petersburg, Russia's second biggest city, I think these drones are launched either from territorial waters of the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, potentially, maybe Sweden, or from ground of these quasi-states that they are. Although this is my personal take, Russian officials never actually publicly claimed that these NATO member states are directly engaged in these drone launches on drone attacks on Russian northern territories. So 6 drones were intercepted over the Leningrad region, and also 6 drones over the Tula and Ryazan regions, 5 drones in Volgograd, 4 in Bryansk region, 3 each in Oryol and Pskov regions, 2 each in the Belgorod and Kursk regions, 1 each in Voronezh, Kaluga, Lipetsk, Novgorod, and Rostov regions. Unfortunately, geography of strikes are truly vast from northern latitudes of Russia to southern latitudes, and I'm afraid as long as the Western so-called elites continue this proxy war against Russia, we will face this kind of terrorist attacks on daily basis. No reports at this point about more or less significant damage or casualties as a result of this night attack. If any update on that, I will share additional information in next updates. Also, dear friends, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian Defense Ministry confirmed information about liberation of Zaporozhye, a settlement in the Dnipropetrovsk region. I reported about progress of the Russian armed forces in this direction, and we needed official confirmation from Defense Ministry, and now we have this. You are seeing on your screen right now this settlement, Zaporozhye, in the Dnipropetrovsk region. This is the seventh settlement, if I remember correctly, that were liberated by Russian troops in this area. Day earlier, there was reports about liberation of another settlement in Dnipropetrovsk region, Filia, that was the name of this settlement. And right now, this morning, dear friends, a number of sources are reporting about significant sectoral scale progress of the Russian armed forces in Zaporozhye sector, and most western part of Zaporozhye sector. According to reports, Russian troops establish control over their Plavny settlement that you see right now on your screen, and move further towards the settlement of Primorskaya. So forward units of the Russian armed forces are now conducting operations in parts of Primorskaya settlement, which is also, I mean, you can see on your screen, dear friends, a relatively large town, for sure. So I will say, well done, significant progress, sectoral scale progress of the Russian troops in this direction. Also, dear friends, we have this reporter update basically from Telegram channel Mash, one of the biggest Telegram channels in the Russian segment of this platform. And report is that about 5,000 Ukrainian armed forces personnel risks are being encircled by Russian troops near the Seversk in the DPR. This will be the fourth major encirclement, or cauldron, by the way, that Russian armed forces created recently. According to Mash, after the Russian 7th Motorized Rifle Brigade took the village of Serebryanka on the northern side of Seversk, a flank opened for their advance on Seversk itself. At the same time, the Bars 16th unit of the Russian forces and the 123rd Motorized Rifle Brigade are pressuring the central flank near the Ivanovo-Darivka and Sporna settlements, while the 88th unit is advancing from the south. Ukrainian 10th, 54th, and their 81st, and also 109th brigades are trying to resist, but Russian forces are pushing them towards the Seversk, cutting them off from supply routes, as it happened near the Konstantinovka, Pokrovsk, and Kupiansk. Russian armed forces, according to Mash, also pushing the Ukrainian forces out of their Serebryanka forestry, and has reached the Yampol Zarezhne road, approaching the city by 5 kilometers from the north there. And let me also give you this report, by the way, from TASS news agency, that in the Serebryanka forestry, parts of Serebryanka forestry that are in LPR, in Lugansk People's Republic, was almost completely cleared of Ukrainian armed forces. This report is coming from Lieutenant General, head of Ahmad Special Forces, Abdi Alaudinov. Well, let me give you some more specifics. The Serebryanka forestry in their LPR has been almost completely cleared of Ukrainian armed forces units. Deputy Chief of the main military political directorate of the Russian armed forces, commander of the Ahmad Special Forces of the Russian Ministry of Defense, Lieutenant General Abdi Alaudinov, told the TASS news agency. We have some quotes here. So as we know, since 2022, there has been a standoff both along the entire line of contact and in the Serebryanka forestry. One of my units, and there are other units of the Ministry of Defense, were there all this time destroying the enemy every day. Their enemy was constantly, nevertheless, transferring more and more forces there, reserve forces. We were conducting counteroffensive actions against each other. Sometimes we were pushing them out. Sometimes they were returning these areas due to various circumstances. At the moment, we can state that the Serebryanka forestry has been almost completely cleared. He said, Alaudinov added that fighters from the Russian Defense Ministry units are putting their finishing touches, clearing some areas, but basically they have already completely driven their enemy out of the Serebryanka forestry and are already moving on. And let me show you, dear friends, where this Serbianka forestry is located. It's a massive forestry, by the way, on the north of Seversk. So this is the area. This is Seversk town itself, which is getting almost in operational encirclement. Russian troops are working in this direction, and this is the forestry itself, a massive forestry, and based on reports from MASH, based on reports from Lieutenant General Abdiel Audinov, this forestry is completely cleared, almost completely cleared from enemy forces, especially when it comes to LPR part of it, right? LPR part of it. This is Serbianka village, by the way, quite a big village that was mentioned in Mash's report. And from the northern side, Russian troops are about 5 kilometers away from Seversk itself, and there is no more settlements in between, right? It's only fields and some strongholds that Kiev regime's forces might have in these fields. I guess Russian artillery, Russian heavy flamethrower systems, Russian Air Force will take care of those strongholds that Kiev regime's forces might have in this area, and it's only a matter of maybe, I don't know, a week or two, and Russian troops probably will approach Seversk, outskirts of Seversk, from northern, potentially northern western flanks too, as it done from eastern side, where Russian troops are basically on outskirts of Seversk, some kilometer, maybe 1,500 meters is only distance between the forward units of the Russian forces and Seversk. And Russian troops are approaching the city from southern, eastern, and southern sides too. So interesting, serious sectoral scale, at least, developments happening there. And also, dear friends, let me give you this information from TASS news agency. Although origin information itself is originated from Sky News, which is that Ukraine is losing drone race to Russia as Moscow develops drones that cannot be jammed by electronic warfare, according to a reporter by the British TV Sky News. It is noted that Russian armed forces began using fiber optic drones earlier than Ukraine, ensuring its leadership in the area. According to Sky News, Russia has managed to establish large-scale production of these UAVs, which could decisively change the conflict in Moscow's favor. And let's be real here, it's not Kiev regime, or not just Kiev regime, that is losing this drone warfare or drone race, as Sky News put it, to Russia. It's NATO. It's NATO that is losing this drone warfare, right? Because it's 40 countries, by the way. 40 countries, NATO, and number of other countries outside of NATO that are directly engaged in weapon supplies for Kiev regime, money supplies, intelligence sharing, and so on. So it's NATO and the collective West that is losing this fight, not just their proxy Kiev regime. We should be clear on that, right? Western propaganda should not be able to fool us that it's the Kiev regime alone is fighting against Russia. Really, it's interfacing NATO, right? That already spent if we calculate everything, by the way, from weapons and money that was transferred to munition and media support and intelligence support. I mean, we are talking about trillions that were spent. Just imagine only on the media field, by the way, coverage of this proxy war, how vast was the coverage and still is the coverage of this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. And just imagine how much time was spent on the demonization of Russia, and how much it will cost, by the way, if you buy ad time for that volume. We are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, at least, right? So overall spending of collective West on this proxy war is already exceeding trillion by far. I'm quite sure about it. We will have, sometime in the future, we will have actual numbers, by the way, and people, especially in the West, gonna be shocked to hear how much of resources was taken from Western societies by the so-called elites of the West to provoke this proxy war first and then to prolong as much as they can. And dear friends, I have a lot of news to report still. I mean, dozen and more, right? 2 dozen of news probably left to report. But before I continue, let me just notice for especially for potentially new members of our community that may be watching this video first time or my channel first time, that well, this is independent channel, right, from Russia, and only exists as long as I have support from communities. So if you like the channel, if you like to see this channel being saved and potentially further developed, well, please consider to support all the links of PayPal, Boosty, Patreon are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And during the streams, of course, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble to donate, and also you can become a premium subscriber on Rumble. Everything counts, all support counts, of course, to save the channel, maintain their channel, and hope for a potential further development. And dear friends, when it comes to my Patreon and Boosty channels, yesterday late evening, I published a video, yet another exclusive content there for our Patreon and Boosty communities. And if members of our community they are watching now and have not received notification, then please check that video. It was quite interesting one, isn't it? Hopefully you will find it interesting, at least, right? I will not go into details. Okay, you can see it, by the way. It was a somewhat unique stuff yesterday, in a positive way, by the way. So okay, that's been said, dear friends. Let me continue with a news. And the next report is that Ukraine wants to receive at least 1 billion monthly for purchasing weapons from Ukraine. So Kyiv expects to receive at least $1 billion a month from its allies to purchase American weapons. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said this during a joint press conference with Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store in Kyiv, Reuters reports. And I guess he's gonna get this additional billion on top of whatever else collective is gonna provide this terrorist regime. And I just remind you, dear friends, that earlier Kyiv regime demanded about 120 billion for 2026. On top of that, another 60 billion for some other spendings. On top of that, now we have this request for additional billion every single month. Also, by the way, while Zelensky was in White House recently in Washington, he made statements that Ukraine will, Kyiv regime, let me say, will sign a contract with US for weapons supply for $90 billion, right? And you guess who's gonna pay for that? Of course, the European taxpayers are gonna pay for that, right? And on top of everything that I just mentioned, by the way, we also have this report that NATO states are to send Kyiv another 50 billion in military aid, and this is this year, by the way, this year alone, right? So it's insane. I mean, actual spending on this proxy war against Russia is not just way above trillion, by the way. It could be in trillions at this point, because we should keep in mind that each member state of these organizations like NATO and EU are also obligated by the globalists mainly to send additional money on a monthly basis, regularly, by the way, right? And for example, Germany already spent 50 billion euros. I mean, I don't know if German society knows about it, that 50 billion euros of their money was spent on this terrorist regime. But yes, they did, right? And this is the case in regards to every country, practically every country, with very few exceptions. I mean, I believe Hungary didn't actually pay much, at least, right? Although Hungarian military-industrial complex is engaged in this proxy war against Russia, unfortunately, but at least on official level, Budapest did not send no weapons and no money, right? But yes, another 50 billion to be given to Western-backed terrorist regime for prolongation of this war by NATO alone this year. So report is the friends that NATO members intend to spend another 50 billion on military aid for Ukraine and match its contributions from last year. A senior official has told that Italy's Corriere della Sierra newspaper the bloc's military committee chairman Giuseppe Gavo Dragone stated that NATO countries have already provided more than $33 billion since the January of this year and plan to raise the total to 50 billion by the end of the year. And they will, unfortunately, right? And yet again, this is all money, by the way, that coming off pockets of the Western societies, Western citizens, right? So yes, very unfortunate development there, but it is what it is. And as I mentioned, France, Germany alone already spent over 50 billion euros on Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. Bild reported that from this 50 plus billion, 25 billion euros or $27 billion was spent for housing of the refugees and Ukrainian refugees in Germany, by the way. Many of them, maybe not all of them, but many of them live much better than Germans do, and they do nothing. Same time, I mean, these Ukrainian refugees, they do nothing, and they live better than Germans do, right? And this is pieces of many Germans, by the way. And one of the reasons that AfD, Alternative for Germany party, is a popular, could be exactly this situation that these so-called refugees, by the way, right, that don't want to integrate, don't want to work, don't want to pay taxes, don't want to be useful or helpful to the society, right? Just on the benefits are living better than Germans do, right? And it's a case not just in Germany, by the way, in many other European countries too. And one can understand why locals can be pissed off because of this whole situation, right? There is never money for locals, but there is always money for wars and for the so-called refugees, by the way, right? And I'm saying so-called refugees because vast majority of them are just looking for a better life. Let's be real here. Either are economical migrants, most of them, or are just using or abusing, let's say, laws that are implemented in European countries that lets them do nothing and live on quite okay level, right? They cannot do it in Ukraine. In Ukraine, they have to work, right, to make up for a living. But in Germany, they can't do nothing, and they have a relatively decent life, by the way, right? They're not gonna get rich on the benefits, but nevertheless, man, they're gonna have some difference. Anya, my wife is telling me now that there is some issues. Is there any issues with the sound, dear friends? I'm monitoring chat now, and dear friends, if there is any issue with the sound, please tell me. Okay, Alexander Gizer is saying that there is a issue with the sound. So you know what? I'm gonna reconnect her microphone, dear friends. I might be lost for a couple of seconds, but I will come back. So let me check sounder. Hopefully, no, I reconnected my mic. Hopefully, it will work a little better now. That's what happens when you don't really have like professional equipment for streaming. It, what? No, yeah. Should I? Okay, I can turn off. Am I back? Is there a sound issues again? I don't know what to do with this. Unfortunately, unfortunately, time to time there is issues, some technical issues that I have to deal. Maybe mic is broke. Maybe I just need a new mic or something. So difference. I mean, if it's not too bad, I will continue. Dear friends, what is your take? Tell me in the chat, please. It's good now. Daniela is commenting. Daniela Modus. So should I continue, dear friends, or should I stop her? What? Okay, I will continue then. I will continue. There should be no. I don't know what is wrong with this equipment, man. It's just not good. That's all. So I will just continue. Is it worse now? Okay, sorry, dear friends, for this technical issue. I will continue if I may. Hopefully, maybe sound will improve a bit. So Alexander G is commenting. Maybe it's an issue with the internet connection. I mean, could be. I switched off VPN now. I switched off VPN now, and because StreamYard is not blocked in Russia, I can actually stream through StreamYard without VPN, and hopefully it will work now better. So, dear friends, let me continue. I'll give you headlines then. If there is issues with sound, I will go through news faster. And let's end today's live stream on news segment alone, because if quality is bad, then well, maybe I should even enter the stream. But nevertheless, we have this report that Zelensky pushes for Western troops in Ukraine again. At the meeting with the Germany's Vice Chancellor Klingbeil, he said that the boots on the ground from major Western countries are important for Ukraine's security. And as you know, dear friends, Moscow on many occasions stated that no NATO troops will be acceptable on Kiev-controlled territory. And we should also keep in mind that this is not Zelensky saying that NATO boots should be on the ground there. This is globalists are saying, globalist-controlled regimes. Zelensky is just a talking header of theirs, right? Their proxy and their talking header, and while saying so, constantly reiterating that there to be boots on the ground. He's just globalists basically are creating the false narratives based on which then they will justify presence of their troops, right? Although it's going to be a fatal mistake, I think, on the part of NATO member states to send their troops, by the way, but because most likely those troops of NATO that will step on a Kiev-controlled territory will go back into their countries in the body bags. I mean, that's how it's gonna be. Also, report are that. I mean, is it okay now? Is sound is a little better now? Okay. So we have this report that EU and US special forces exercises of 1,600 military personnel just started in Finland near the Russian border will continue until September 12, according to Finnish Ministry of Defense. And well, of course, Russian militaries will and military intelligence security services will pay close attention to it, as they should, because of course these kind of exercises are conducted to prepare militaries to operate in certain geographical areas, right? And Russian, borderline stripper towards the Finland. I mean, it's a similar geographical area, similar landscape, and I guess one might assume that our NATO troops, in their preparation to war with Russia, are testing out their special forces in a geographical area as of Finland, right? It's the same stuff in northern latitudes of Russia, by the way, in Finland or in Kursk Peninsula. So of course we should pay much attention to it. Russia and Europe. The Finnish president, meanwhile, very rarely, but sometimes does something that makes sense. And for example, he said that Russia-Europe ties might resume after Ukraine conflict, but won't be the same. This was said by Alexander Stubb, president of Finland, and I mean, rarely, but I mean, even he can come up with something that makes sense. Of course, Russia-Finnish relationships never going to be the same. Finnish people, Helsinki, enjoyed greatly, by the way, and benefited greatly with from friendly attitude of Moscow, even during the Cold War era, by the way. In Finland, at least formally, was a neutral. Finnish economy benefited tremendously, right? While maintaining working relationships with Moscow, with the Soviet Union, and then also being a part of our collective West, right? And this situation will, and after Soviet Union collapse, Moscow was also maintaining this friendly attitude towards the Finland, but it's all in the past now. This conflict, this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, will of course end one day with the complete victory of the Russian Federation. Of course, there can be no doubts. There can be no doubts about that. And if anybody thinks in European countries, including Finland, that, well, once this conflict will end, they will do business with Russia like nothing had happened, then they are mistaken. Their economy is never going to enjoy benefits that they had through cooperation with Russia, and Finland is definitely among those countries that lost tremendously, by the way. Finland never going to recover. Finland is just doomed, by the way. They were so dependent on Russia in many ways, by the way. People in Finland don't even realize how dependent Finland was on Russia and their cooperation with Russia. But they will find out now. They will find out. And my hope is that whomever is a Russian president, whomever is in the leadership of the Russian Federation, they will never, absolutely never, by the way, not now, not in 50 years, not in 100 years, never, ever even try to have a good friendly relationships with Europe, because they will betray. They will betray, by the way. Western elites not going to change. European elites not going to change. They're going to be Russia haters always, and they're going to try always to harm Russia, Russian people, and therefore, hopefully, Russia will completely seals border, only doors for ordinary people to be left. Otherwise, let's cut every possible ties with Europe and leave them alone, by the way, and hope that they will leave us alone too. Maybe not now, but sometime in the future, right? That's all about that I can say about Russia-Europe cooperation. There should not be cooperation ever, by the way, right? And Soviet Union made a great mistake while trying to rebuild relationships with the Western European countries. We all know now that that was a mistake, right? And hopefully, leadership of Russian Federation will not try to do the same, because yet again, European elites gonna, if they can, they're gonna kill us all. By the way, they're dreaming about killing us all, right? And they will, if we will give them opportunities. So we should cut all the ties with Europe, just leave the door open for potential migrants from there, and they're going to be a tsunami, by the way, of migration from European countries. Process is already visible, right? So leave their door open for connection between ordinary people, but when it comes to economical cooperation or political cooperation, no, just cut it off completely, by the way. That's it, the best way to go forward. World is massive, right? World is massive, man. We don't freaking need no Europe for anything whatsoever, literally for anything, period, right? So yes, Finnish president very rarely, but sometimes says some truths, and well, this is exactly the case, that relationships between Russia and Europe never going to be the same, which is true, and for a good, by the way. We should never ever trust European states ever. Meanwhile, relationships are deteriorating, and quite rapidly, between Warsaw and Kiev regime, and not just between Warsaw, but in this particular case, we have reported that Poland could ban naturalization of the Ukrainian Nazi sympathizers. So Polish President Karol Nawrocki wants to amend the country's citizenship law to say that the naturalization of Ukrainian nationalists is undesirable. Warsaw and Kiev have long been involved in a dispute over crimes committed by Ukrainian nationalists during the Second World War and their heroization in a modern Ukraine. During a press conference on Monday, Nawrocki weighed in on recently adopted changes to the citizenship law and said his office was working on additional amendments. He said the law should include the slogan "Stop Banderism," referring to the ideology of Nazi collaborators, Stepan Bandera, and Ukrainian Nazis, by the way, are considering Stepan Bandera to be their god, kind of, right? They are no longer Christians, those seeking animals, by the way, Ukrainian Nazis. They are animals, right? Rabid animals, and their god is this sickening element, another freaking rabid animal that Bandera was. Bandera and Shukhevich and the rest of the garbage, right? Who collaborate during the Second World War with Nazi Germany, and who was directly engaged with their followers in mass killings of Poles, Russians, Belarusians, Jews, and everybody. I mean, that's what Nazis do, isn't it? So yes, Poland, not the first time, is clearly laying ground for a potential move on Western Ukraine to reclaim former Polish territories, and I consider this information to be a part of this preparation of the ground. And this is not all. Also, we have this report that Polish president blocks bill on extending aid to Ukrainian refugees. So Polish President Karol Nawrocki has blocked a draft law that would extend special status and benefits for Ukrainians who are in Poland after February 2022, and there are millions and millions of residents of Kiev-controlled territory that flee country in direction of all over the world, by the way, including Poland, right? And as it is the case in Germany, in UK, in many other countries, in Poland, Ukrainian refugees were also enjoying some benefits, right? So-called refugees, by the way. I will retaliate. They are so-called refugees because in Western Ukraine, they can live in Western Ukraine, easy, right? They can live in, by the way. Is their Kiev is obliterated or something? No. People, you go walk around the Kiev, by the way, you will see packed restaurants and bars, right? Packed restaurants and bars every freaking evening. And same goes about in every freaking town and village that are not exactly on the line of contact. And whenever Russia conducts long-range strikes, it's a precision strikes, right? It's a precision strikes. And the residents of Kiev, they enjoy their life. They don't even care if something somewhere has been destroyed. They don't feel it, right? They might hear explosion time to time, right? They might smell that something is burning, right? Air defense system or munition of some sort or something. But they do live their lives. So how come that these millions and millions of people from Ukraine fled and claimed to be refugees? Refugees from where? You know, refugees from Lvov, from Kiev, from Odessa. I mean, really? And by the way, we all know numbers, isn't it? There are allegedly 5 to 7 million Ukrainian so-called refugees in Europe alone. Several million of them in Poland, another million in Germany, and this number goes and goes, right? If you take whole Donbass, by the way, Kharkov region, and whole Donbass, also Zaporozhye and Kherson region. First of all, majority of the people that were living there are Russian citizens now. Vast majority of them, right? And if some of them even due to certain circumstances first went to Europe, they did took flight then to come back to Russia, right? So no one can claim that all these millions of people are from eastern parts of former Soviet Republic, Ukraine, right? Or from new Russian regions currently, because they are not. Vast majority of these so-called refugees are from central parts of Kiev-controlled territory, western parts. They are moving in and out as if it's nothing, right? They are basically abusing, by the way, this laws that the system basically that is in place in Europe, right? That benefits refugees. That's what it is, really, isn't it? Because I cannot understand how someone from Lvov, by the way, can claim to be a refugee in Germany. I mean, are you kidding me? Is there a war in Lvov? You are a refugee for what exactly reason? If you have been attacked by Kiev regime, okay, I will take you as a refugee then, if regime itself is targeting you. But you cannot claim that you are running from a war, because there is no war in Lvov. Or in Odessa, by the way, or in, I don't know, Dnipropetrovsk, or Kiev. Anyways, by the way, I guess Polish president has fed up spending a lot of money on these so-called refugees, by the way, right? And they're going to cut benefits for them, and a number of other European countries, many European countries, eventually will come to it, I guess, right? RIA Novosti is reporting that Orban warns Zelensky that his threats against Hungary will not go without the consequences. So Vladimir Zelensky's threats regarding the Druzhba pipeline will have long-term consequences. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said on his Facebook page, we have quote here, Zelensky openly threatened Hungary. He admitted that they are shelling the Druzhba pipeline because we do not support their EU membership. It follows that the Hungarians made the right decision Zelensky's words will have longer-term consequences, politicians said. And it's not just Orban, but also Foreign Minister of Hungary made some strong statements. For example, he said that Ukrainian armed forces strikes on Druzhba oil pipeline are attack on Hungary and Slovakia. He believes that in this way, Kiev will, with the support of Brussels, which remains silent about their attacks on the pipeline, is trying to put pressure on Budapest to force it to change its position on the conflict in Ukraine and its accession to EU. And Szijjártó definitely has a point, as it is the case with the Prime Minister of Hungary. But well, action is needed, isn't it? Only statements not gonna deter either Brussels or the Western proxy terrorist regime of Zelensky. And they will continue, by the way, to harm national security interests of Hungary, Slovakia, and everyone else, basically, right? As long as they can. As long as they can. So if Budapest is serious, then you know what? Send your troops into Transcarpathia. Cut all their electricity supplies to Kiev regime, cut their gas supplies to Kiev regime. And by the way, maybe some members of our community don't know, but majority of electricity, imported electricity by Kiev regime, is coming through Hungary. And also most of the gas, if not entirely, that Kiev regime is receiving is coming from Hungary. So Budapest does has leverage, by the way, right? Well, if they are serious, they should cut energy supplies to this terrorist regime. They should declare that regime as a terrorist one, first of all, then cut energy supplies and then send their troops to liberate former Hungarian territories in Transcarpathia and reclaim that territory and liberate hundreds of thousands of ethnic Hungarians that have been treated by Zelensky's Nazis as animals. That's what they do, by the way. If you think they are terrorizing only Russian speakers, no, they are terrorizing everybody that don't sound or looks like them, including Hungarians, by the way. That's how it is. So all these statements not gonna have any impact, of course. So therefore, you know, I hope Hungary will take some actual steps to fight this Nazi entity that the so-called Ukraine has become under control of collective West. Also, when it comes to collective West, by the way, we have this report from TASS news agency that Russian diplomats may be banned from the free movement within the Schengen zone. The new 19th package of EU sanctions against Russia might include a ban on the movement of the Russian diplomats within the Schengen zone. This was stated by Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky. Okay, by the way, do it, because I'm afraid the Russian leadership will not cut ties with this sickening collective West, completely at least, right? And if collective West will help with that, you know, it might benefit Russia in the long term tremendously, right? I don't think Russia needs any diplomatic relationships in any of the hostile nations, right? And I don't think Russia should spend I don't know how much it spends, but tens of millions at least, right? Tens of millions of dollars every single year on on keeping embassies and embassy staff in dozens of these countries in the collective West that do whatever they can to kill as many Russians as they can. There is no point, absolutely, to have diplomatic relationships with UK, with France, with Germany, with Czech Republic, with any of them, man. Right? Let's recall our stuff, shut down embassies, consulates, everything, man. Right? We can use, I don't know, Argentina. I'm just saying, Argentina or whichever country, by the way, Brazil. Let's say Brazil. We can use Brazil to communicate with those countries if there will be any necessity of that. Otherwise, that's it, man. That's it. how much more embarrassment Russian diplomats and Russian citizens gonna endure in our collective West countries, so that Moscow will finally realize that, you know what, with these ones, we actually cannot have a decent conversation with modern elites of the West, right? So then, if this is the case, and there is no indicators that anything going to change anytime soon, Europe, majority of European societies are in deep sleep, by the way. It's zombified, completely zombified, brainwashed, and brain dead. Let's be real, majority of societies in the West are brain dead at this point. That's how much they've been brainwashed, right? And so there is not even a theoretical chance that societies will wake up one day and reclaim their own countries and their own destinies, and their elites will be changed, right? There is no such possibility there. So why we are playing these nonsensical games, by the way, of freaking non-existent diplomacy with our European countries? I mean, come on, man. Let's cut it all. And that's it. We don't need Europe, man, for anything. We just don't need Europe for anything. Only reason why should we leave the door open is for ordinary people that are actually not being brainwashed, right? Not being zombified, and might want to come to Russia, have some relationships with Russian citizens, maybe even migrate to Russia. That's the only reason why should we keep the door open. Otherwise, just cut all the ties, man. We don't freaking need them for anything, literally for anything, man. Right? And maybe one day, by the way, maybe one day. I don't think Putin will do it, but Putin not going to be a Russian president forever, isn't it? Sometime in the future, we're going to have some other president, and hopefully this other president will be less inclined to exercise restraint constantly, right? We need someone like me, by the way, president, to be honest. And I'm quite sure, by the way, no one going to mess around Russia, by the way, ever, right? Not going to even think about it, because they would know very first day they mess around Russia, they being killed. They will die straight away, by the way, in hours' time. Because I will drop nukes, by the way, all over the freaking places. I wouldn't give a fuck. That's how it is, man. And that's how very many Russians are thinking. I'm quite sure about it. We are nuclear power, for God's sake. How come that these freaking nobodies are messing around? How come, man? What the hell is going on? Are we dreaming or something? It's insane, man. And how many our people died because we just did not use all the necessary force? What the hell, man? This is not normal and not okay. But anyways, Russian president views situation differently. Okay, he's a president. He has a majority support. Actually does, by the way, 70+% according to surveys are in support of him. So therefore, he has a complete support of Russia. Not 100%, but majority support, and therefore he is in position. But at this, on many points, and hopefully one day Russia will have a president that will not allow nobody to mess around, and will use nuclear weapons whenever it's necessary, right? Freely, by the way, without any games, man. You have a nukes, just drop it, man, here and there, and bring them all to the senses and let them know that they're gonna freaking die, man, if they continue. That's it, man. That's all you need to do. And some members of our community might say, well, you are aggressive, you're talking about nukes. Yes, I'm talking about nukes. It's my fellow citizens that are dying in a battle there, not yours. If your citizens stands of fight, then your attitude would be very different. I'm quite sure about it, right? So that should be kept in mind also. Anyways, another news here. EU is running out of things to sanction in Russia, according to Politico. Wow, what a surprise. The bloc lacks the tools to squeeze Moscow harder. Who is squeezing who, by the way? I mean, really, Europe, if Russian president decides, it only takes like 24 hours, and we will force European elites to kneel, by the way, and ask for mercy. Literally 24 hours, and all of those motherfuckers in European so-called elites will kneel in air, on air, by the way, right? And will ask mercy to all of Russia. That's what we can do if we want to. A real blow would require secondary sanctions on the countries and the companies cooperating with Russia. Move that depends on Washington. Well, I mean, these psychopaths, they think now with secondary sanctions, they're going to do something. All they're going to do, by the way, is basically force the rest of the world to further accelerate this process of distancing themselves from the collective West. That's all, And India already said, I mean, you don't like her, what we do, I mean, go and kill yourself, right? We do what we find necessary. We don't care. That's what India said, right? If you don't like buy from India, just don't buy it. We don't bother, right? We will find markets somewhere else, and they will, by the way, goods that were destined for US now will come here to Russia, right? And in China is also opening its markets in a big way for Indian goods, and we will take care of ourselves. The world is much bigger than some might think, and collective West is just a tiny part of this world, man. Just a tiny part. We can ignore it completely if we want to. That's it. And we will. Processes clearly are moving in that direction, right? So this new topic, secondary sanctions, and what you're going to achieve with these secondary sanctions. Does anybody in the political, for example, understands any of it? I don't think so. Anyways, by the way, Trump, US president, was making crazy headlines, last 24 hours. He went to act childishly in White House yesterday, by Moscow time yesterday. I don't know what time it was in US. But he did make some statements that might make some sense. For example, US want to play a key role in US would not play a key role in Ukraine's security guarantees, according to him. Well, European leaders are saying something different, that US agreed to play significant role. Now US president says, no, we don't gonna play significant role. Let the Europeans deal with this. Who knows what is going on, really, right? So Europe must take their lead in providing significant security guarantees to Ukraine. US President Donald Trump said on Monday Washington's role will be supportive rather than a primary. He stressed, and the question is what this supportive means, right? Maybe Pentagon will deploy 1,000 troops in Odessa, then say, we are just for logistical reasons. Right? There still are troops, right? And if Russian leadership will go ahead on the statements that was made earlier, that those NATO troops will be treated as a combatants, then Russian militaries will, exterminate those U.S. troops, and and what after that? U.S. and Russia should get engaged in full-scale nuclear war. So these psychopaths in White House should think a little better. Only way U.S. has, by the way, is to get out completely from this conflict, or they're going to find out hard way. That's it, by the way. At this point, I just simply don't care whatever about anything that comes out from U.S. man. We should put them in their places long time ago. I mean, U.S. elites, but unfortunately we didn't. RT is also reporting that Trump claims America no longer spends money on Ukraine, which is also a lie, by the way. U.S. provides intelligence for key regime. Does that intelligence has any value, any worth? No, it's not just directly sending billions and billions. It's what you do. And U.S. still continues to provide intelligence assistance or military assistance, media assistance, political assistance. And that is money. You can convert that into actual money, right? So Trump is lying, by the way. I mean, he is lying day in, day out, and quite often no one probably understands why he is lying. Probably even he has no freaking idea why he's lying so much. Also, he went to say another lie that Russia-Ukraine turned out to be war of personalities, which is, I mean, it's not even lie, by the way. This is level of stupidity to say something like that, hard to comprehend. I mean, what the hell is wrong with this guy, right? He's, after all, president of US and should act a little more adequately, right? Should say some stuff that actually makes sense. What personalities, by the way? Hundreds of thousands of people dead, and you're talking about personalities? What the hell? And this conflict actually began in 2014 when US orchestrated coup d'etat. So which personalities then? Because in 2014, after coup d'etat, they put in a position of power. I mean, Westerners, Poroshenko, isn't it? So is there Poroshenko's personality and Putin's personality, or Zelensky's personality and Putin's personality? How freaking stupid is this guy, man? Unbelievable. Unbelievable, man. And he also went to threaten, by the way, Russia. He also went to threaten Russia again that they're going to be very serious consequences. Okay, we got that, right? It's not the first time Trump is threatening Russia. So let's see when his latest 2 weeks ultimatum is expiring, like in a couple of days time, I guess, right? So let's see what they're gonna do. But trust me, very few people here in Russia. I can go. I mean, I can do live stream, right? And go on the street and ask first 100 people, do they really care about Trump's ultimatums? And probably 99% of the people have no idea that Trump even actually issued any ultimatums or any threats. People just don't give a damn, right? We don't live our lives, right? And we will do whatever we have to do whenever it's necessary. That's the attitude that we have here. So I don't know, someone should tell Trump that he's messing around the wrong people, man. And it's better to stop acting this tough, because we're gonna smash his freaking face. He's gonna get humiliated in a level that probably no one would, thought that was possible. So better this bitch stop acting tough in regards to Russia and messing around. This slut of Israel, by the way. Can you imagine? Slut of Israel is acting tough. I mean, what the hell, man, is wrong with this freaking world? Unbelievable. And this dirty animal also went to say that he wants nuclear arms deal with Russia and China. Washington wants nuclear arms reduction deal with Russia and China. US President Donald Trump said on Monday, how embarrassing is that? Isn't it? If I was US citizen, by the way, I would be so embarrassed, man, so embarrassed. Then first you had just recently Biden, by the way, this freaking zombie, right, that did not even understood who he was and where he was and stuff. And now you have this freaking slut of Israel as a president, man. Before that, you have Barack Obama, by the way, total fucking fake personality, right? Nobody. Before that, who was before that? Bush, right? One of the most stupid persons probably in the world at the time, right? And he's even more stupid now. And then you have Clinton, by the way, another freaking scum of humanity. And wow, man, is in 300 million people that lives in US, you cannot find one decent person to support, to put in that freaking White House. I mean, what the hell, man? Anyways. So Washington wants a nuclear arms reduction deal with Russia and China. Donald Trump said, well, this is a dream, isn't it? A dream of US elites. That's not going to happen. First of all, because China would not even talk about this matter, of course. Also, by the way, Trump lied. While talking about this stuff, he also lied that US has most nuclear weapons. This is not true, by the way. Russia has most nuclear weapons, not the US. US is a second. Let's be, factual, right? But yet again, Trump is lying constantly. God knows for whatever, for why, for what. But first of all, China will never agree on denuclearization, and Russia will never agree on, should never agree on denuclearization. Western world, by the way, if we did not have the nukes, probably majority of our community will agree with me that if Russia did not have the nukes, even nukes are not really helping much because I mean, these freaking nobodies are messing around Russia for how long now, right? So even nukes are not really helping much, but at least those nukes are until now played this at least some level of deterrent, right? So that NATO countries did not send their troops open. The only reason they did not is because of the nukes, right? That's all. If Russia did not have the nukes, by the way, they will invade Russia, as they did many times before in the past. They, I mean, European so-called elites and collective West, by the way, right? So therefore, Moscow should never ever even consider to get rid of nukes. By the way, no, exactly opposite is needed. We need a more powerful nuclear weapons, thermonuclear weapons, more powerful, more capable, and that's the direction we should go. By the way, not necessarily not necessarily more nuclear weapons because we already have like thousands and thousands, like 6,000 plus, isn't it? But we need if there is a way to improve capabilities of nuclear warheads, let's do it. Let's make them even more powerful, even more devastating. That's the way to go because this is the only way we can actually deter the psychopaths that are in charge of collective West, at least on some levels, right? And while China is watching this situation, by the way, that even though Russia is a country with the most nuclear weapons, and nevertheless, so many nobodies are messing around Russia, and even attacked Russian nuclear triad. I mean, Beijing is thinking probably, you know what? We had a plans for 27 to increase our nuclear warheads up to 1,500, right? No, it's not enough. Let's do 3,000. Let's just do 3,000 and then double down on that too. That's the way Chinese are probably thinking, and rightfully so, because man, nukes are only ways we can deter these psychopaths that are in charge of Western countries, man. Without nukes, they will send their troops. By the way, they would already send their troops if we had no nukes, and they would try to kill us all. And they will use nuclear weapons. By the way, I have no doubts about it. That if that was the case, U.S., France, and UK would drop nukes on us without any hesitation. And so when I say that, let's drop the nukes, right? And when somebody from a European country or the US will say, what, how dare you talking about nukes? I mean, come on, man, let's be real. If situation was reversed and the US was in Russian place, you really think US would hesitate to deploy nukes? Really? No, isn't it? US would use nukes on the first day. That's how it is, man. That's how it is. So no thanks, no denuclearization, by the way. We need more nukes, more powerful nukes, more advanced weapon systems, no less, by the way. Right? RIA Novosti is also reporting that, fascist Israel, by the way, killed another 5 journalists in the Gaza Strip. So 5 journalists were killed in Israeli strike on the emergency room of Nasser Hospital in the southern Gaza Strip. Al Jazeera reports among the killed journalists are TV channel operator Mohammed Salama, blogger Mariam Abu Dika worked with Independent Arabia and AP, photographer Mauz Abu Taha, who worked for NBC, Reuters, photojournalist Hassan Al-Masri, and journalist Ahmed Abu Aziz. So 5 more journalists were killed by fascist Israelis. And I remind you, dear friends, that Israelis, these fascists, by the way, already killed more journalists in last 2 years than journalists die in all wars combined. First World War, Second World War, I mean, Vietnamese War, Afghanistan War, and Korean War. Israeli fascists killed more journalists in last 2 years than journalists have been killed in all wars in the last 150 years, by the way, or if not ever. And they will continue. These fascists will continue to kill journalists, kill humanitarian workers, to kill hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. And then when they will kill all the Palestinians, they will continue to kill Lebanese. They will begin killing in mass Syrians and Jordanians and Egyptians. They would love to kill everybody. Those fascists. That's what they are, by the way. And I'm not quite sure even process of denazification will help these freaking zombies that modern Israelis, these fascist elements become. Scum of humanity. That's what they are, man. Majority of them. I'm not saying one or two, man. Majority, vast majority of modern Israelis are freaking fascist animals. That's it. And I might use word animal quite often in regards to this scum of humanity. And there are some animals rights activists might be, angry on that, with that comparison, because animals are not as intolerable as fascist Israelis are, isn't it? But after all, humans are animals also. Let's not forget, by the way, that humans are animals, right? So it is what it is, man. Humans are animals, primates, to be more specific, right? Also, Trump went to say that they're gonna be good and decisive ending to their war in Gaza within 2-3 weeks. I don't know. He's lying, by the way. Nothing gonna change in 2-3 weeks in a positive way. So therefore, Trump lied once again yesterday in the White House while saying that there's some positive, decisive ending gonna happen to the war in 2 weeks time. It's a lie. Trump is lying constantly, by the way. Nothing that comes out of his mouth can be trusted. Meanwhile, fascist Israeli named persona non grata president of Brazil, Lula da Silva. Okay, I mean, I think all BRICS member states should cut ties, diplomatic ties with Israel, by the way. It's a shame. It's a shame that vast majority of countries in this world did not yet cut ties with this fascist entity that Israel is, man. I mean, what the hell? What the hell is wrong with elites, political elites in this world, man? Are they all being controlled by Israeli freaking secret services, or what the hell is wrong with them? At least cut the diplomatic ties with Israel, with these fascists, man, right? Also, by the way, when it comes to control of the political class by Israeli secret services and their Israeli lobby, well, you have this report from Australia that Canberra kicks out Iran's ambassador over anti-Semitic attacks. Prime Minister Albanese believes Tehran was behind the torching of kosher cafe in Sydney and the arson attack on Adas Israel synagogue. Sound is good. Okay. In Melbourne, this makes the first time Australia has expelled an ambassador since the World War II. Okay. Israeli lobby does its thing, by the way. They are in control of Canberra, and they can order this so-called Prime Minister of Australia to kneel and kiss the boots of Israeli ambassador, for example, and he will. He will. That's it, man. That's all one have to know about our Australian political class. Period. Right. So, okay, I guess Iran will fire back in the same similar manner, and the Australian ambassador, if there is Australian ambassador in Iran, will be kicked out. Also, Israeli Channel 13 reported some interesting stuff. I'm not sure this is correct, by the way. I'm giving you a source of news. It's Israeli Channel 13, according to which Russia quietly evacuating diplomats from Israel. Flight radar confirms Russian 214 high security airborne command post Array 64516 flew from Moscow to Tel Aviv this week. This is not a commercial flight. Tu-114 is used for VIP communications, secure relays, or emergency evacuations. And Israeli Channel 13 reports multiple Russian diplomatic staff have already left their country. And, well, I don't know. Maybe this is rotation of Russian diplomatic staff. Or maybe something else is happening. Maybe Moscow is going to be one of their first capitals that would actually cut the diplomatic ties with Israel due to fascist nature of Israel and due to genocide that fascist Israelis are committing against their innocent Palestinian people and crimes that they are committing against humanity. I would love to see Moscow being the first among major capitals in this world that will cut ties, diplomatic ties with Israel due to horrendous crimes that the Israeli fascists are committing. I'm not sure that Moscow will do it, at least under current leadership. I'm not at all sure that Russian president Putin will authorize such a move, but you never know. But you never know about it. Maybe he will. Maybe he will, because it's a shame that we still have diplomatic ties with those fascists, man. What the hell? Are you serious? Tens of millions of our people died fighting fascism, by the way, and were wounded, by the way, and lost health, including my grandfather, right? Who eventually died from the wounds that he received there during the Second World War. And they were fighting fascists so that we can exist, right? We can live. And now we have diplomatic ties with the freaking fascists. How embarrassing is that? It's crazy, man. So maybe, by the way, maybe if there is something of true in this Israeli media report that Russia is evacuating its diplomatic staff, maybe Moscow is going to be first, by the way. I hope this is going to be the case. That Moscow is going to be the first major capital in this world that will cut diplomatic ties with fascist Israel. And will only resume diplomatic relationships once Israel is demilitarized and denazified. Let's hope so. Also, by the way, we have a statement from Cambodian President Gustavo Pedro, who says that who reacted basically on all the threats from US and all their anti-Venezuelan statements, and said that the Cartel del Sol does not exist. American so-called elites used to talk about this Cartel del Sol, and they are blaming now Venezuela to be the pinnacle of their drug trafficking, as if none of us know that CIA is actually in charge of drug trafficking worldwide, right? We all know this. Everybody knows this, right? That drug trafficking and weapons trafficking is a business of CIA. Without CIA, no significant movements are happening in this field. It's just obvious. If anyone has any doubts, by the way, let me just give you some numbers. While under US occupation, opium poppy crops were planted almost all over the Afghanistan. And opium and heroin, by the way, from Afghanistan flooded whole world under the US occupation, right? Under the occupation of US and its allies. And when Taliban retake their control over the country, this opium poppy cultivation is been almost completely stopped. Over 90% drop in opium production. So is that a good enough proof on top of everything else that we know already, that US CIA, by the way, and the Pentagon too, are the leading forces when it comes to drug trafficking. And they are saying that, well, Venezuela is on top of the pyramid there, you know. Why? Because they want to overthrow government, they want to overtake Venezuela, which is, by the way, a richest country in this world with oil. Let's keep that in mind. But when it comes to oil reserves, by the way, it's not Saudi Arabia that is on number one place, not Russia, not Iraq, not Iran, not Kuwait, no any other country. It's Venezuela. With discovered oil reserves, Venezuela is a number one country. So now you know, we all understand what is going on there, isn't it? So, anyways, Colombian President Gustavo Petro stated that cartel de sol does not exist, calling it a fictitious excuse of the extreme right used to topple uncooperative governments. And if the U.S. is so adamant about the existence of this cartel, let's destroy it together. The U.S., Venezuela, and Colombia. I mean, great proposal, isn't it? From Bogota. No, let's hunt this non-existent cartel, by the way, because existent ones are working under the CIA. So of course now Washington, CIA, and others going to fight non-existent one because they're not going to fight themselves, right? President of Colombia also made a claim that the real cocaine controllers are drug border with their capos living in Europe and the Middle East. And I have to disagree, by the way. I mean, real bosses are in Langley and the Pentagon and the White House. That's it. Real bosses when it comes to drug and weapons trafficking and human trafficking. Without CIA, nothing is done in this field, by the way. Literally nothing. They control everything. They control all their major Mexican narco cartels and the Colombian narco cartels, all of them, by the way. It's a CIA operation. Was, is, and going to be as long as CIA exists. Period, right? But idea of fighting together this non-existent, what is the name? Del Sol cartel is a good idea. You know, let the U.S., Venezuela, and Colombia fight this cartel together. If Washington is all about actually fighting the drug trafficking, but they are all fake, isn't it? They are all freaking fake, by the way. I wonder how anybody, by the way, ever can trust anything that comes out from Washington, man. Or any other Western capital for that matter. I mean, how stupid one have to be, by the way. How illiterate, uneducated, and stupid one have to be to actually have a trust in Western elites, man. I don't know. It's beyond my understanding. And the Chinese foreign ministry spokesman, by the way, Guo Yaokan, also commented on developments around Venezuela. Of course, China sees that U.S. is moving in actively to not just escalate, but actually to demolish the regime there and to reestablish a puppet regime, recolonize basically Venezuela. And Beijing is not happy about it, understandably so. And there are many other countries worldwide, even in the neighborhood of Venezuela. And so Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiaokan urges U.S. to stop sowing discord and let Latin America and Caribbean countries to choose their own path and partners. Basic statement, by the way. I mean, legit, logical statement that, you know what, let those countries, let the people of those countries live the way they want. But Washington cannot do it, man. They just cannot. That's how this empire is built. That's how this empire was built since the Second World War, by the way. Maybe some might argue that this transfer from republic to empire began After Great Depression in US, after First World War, let's say, uh, but after Second World War, US definitely transformed. This transformation had finished, and US did become a empire or enforcer in hands of influential groups in the West, primarily military-industrial complex, neocons, their allies, and their little later globalists, right? That use the opportunity that U.S. being, this corrupt, right? And they did manage over their decades to gain a foothold in U.S. politics. So much so that now globalists probably are more influential in U.S. than neocons. I mean, believe it or not. After all, globalists have Democrats, but you know, neocons also. But I think globalists' influence is higher. And and it is visible, by the way. Take a look at the states where globalist puppets are running. Take a look at the California, by the way. It's a shithole, right? Take a look at the New York. Take a look at the, I don't know, Chicago, by the way. It's a freaking shithole, man. Complete. I mean, it's a disgrace, total disgrace, right? In Chicago, more people are dying, by the way, every freaking day than than during recent, for example, Cambodia Laos fight, when armies were actually shelling each other. By the way, even then, less people died than are killed in Chicago. You know, and Trump was bragging about last weekend no one was killed in Washington. How bad the situation is when you are bragging that there was a day when no one was killed in the Capitol. I mean, seriously, fucking hell, man. Sorry for my French, dear friends, but I mean, it's truly insane. It's just truly insane. RIA Novosti is reporting, by the way, that Pakistan and Bangladesh agreed to boost ties. Pakistan and Bangladesh have signed six cooperation agreements that are expected to deepen the bilateral engagement between the two Asian nations. The agreement, which include visa-free travel for diplomats and the government officials, were signed on Sunday during Pakistani Foreign Minister Mohammed Ishaq Dar's visit to Dhaka, the first such a high-level trip in more than a decade. And well, this is, on one hand, one might argue, well, good news that two countries are improving relationships. But on the other hand, we should keep in mind that Bangladesh, by the way, gained independence from Pakistan, right? And for a reason, people in modern Bangladesh territory were treated like, they were not people at all by Islamabad. And they fed up so much so that, well, they rebel, right? And India helped them to gain independence while risking with its own statehood. And well, only Soviet Union's intervention, some might argue, saved India too. At that point, it was 71, isn't it? 1971. And since then, relationships between Dhaka and New Delhi was good, sometimes maybe greater. But unfortunately, last few years, situation become deteriorating. I'm quite sure it's not just because of their involvement of Pakistani secret services, but also Chinese secret services. There was a coup d'etat basically in Bangladesh, and now Bangladesh is, I might argue, quasi-state run by quasi-regime or proxy regime of Pakistan. Right? China and Pakistan are happy. I would not say that about Bangladesh people, but because they're gonna find out hard way that they made a dire mistake, right? And this is not good for India too, because India might feel being encircled, by the way, from one side Bangladesh, from other side Pakistan, on north China, and this might force Indian leadership to take more drastic steps in number of directions, and in general, this would not help situation in that part of the world to be calm and predictable. So that's how it is. Our friends from India can explain better. Of course, they know better what the hell is going on. But that's my understanding of the situation. Also, we have this report that India test fires new multi-layered air defense systems. India has successfully tested a new integrated air defense system, which took down three targets at varying altitudes and ranges, the defense ministry said on Sunday, and well done, by the way. This is definitely good news. I'm big supporter of India, so therefore any positive news for India, makes me happy. And I wonder if Russian military-industrial complex was engaged in developing of that air defense system. Maybe not, but maybe were engaged. Also, Trump, by the way, U.S. president, threatened every country in this world with some decisive action if these countries will dare to tax U.S. companies, right? I will stand up to countries that attack our incredible American tech companies, said Trump. They outrageously give a complete pass to China's largest tech companies, he says, and the rest of the nonsense, by the way. Right? Every company has a right to tax. Every country has a right to tax the company that makes money in that country. Period. By the way, there is nothing to discuss there. And if U.S. companies do have their representation in Russia, for example, they make money here in the Russian market. Of course, they should pay tax. It's simple stuff. It's nothing extraordinary. They should pay tax here on their amount that they make here, right? They should not pay tax in Russia for money that they make in France, for example, or in I don't know, Vietnam. But on the money that they make here in Russia, they should definitely pay tax. So what Trump is talking about there, it's insane. He did bully though. He did bully few European countries that were intended to implement tax on U.S. companies. France even did, but then backroll on its own decision. But idea itself that U.S. companies should not be taxed is crazy, by the way. I mean, why? Who says so? I mean, who gives a fuck what Trump wants on said or U.S. political elites want to or don't want? Who are they, man? Freaking nobodies, right? What the hell, man? Some freaking dirty animals are dictating to this world what to do, when, and how. I mean, really? Fuck them all, man. These fucking animals. Sorry for my French again, by the way. I'm a little upset today. I myself don't know why. Maybe I'm tired. I don't know. And I'm gonna enter this news on some positive news, by the way. In one sense, Chinese customs confiscated over 1.8 million counterfeit Labubu toys since year started, and I'm quite sure everybody, all of you, have already heard about these Labubu toys. I did, by the way, because my children also have these Labubu toys, right? And it's some sort of, I don't know, man, mega success for a pop mart company that makes these Labubu toys. Their profits, by the way, skyrocketed by 385% on this as a result of this tremendous success with this Labubu, by the way. That looks like Chiburashka, by the way, Soviet era cartoon hero, but without big ears, and this Labubu is just it looks like a freaking hunter killer, right? So with this teeth and stuff. But it's interesting, isn't it? This Pop Mart company, by the way, make 650 million this year alone on this Labubu stuff, right? And understandably, so many companies are trying to, get engaged or have some pie. some part of this pie, and they are creating this counterfeit Labubu Labubu toys, and 1.8 million of those toys were seized and gonna be destroyed, I guess, in China. And I think those toys, counterfeit toys, will be made there all over the world, by the way, everywhere, and not just in China, right? Because that's what happens when there is a high demand on certain thinger. Uh, companies, different companies, dodgy companies, usually all over the world, are beginning to make some copies and make some money on that. But it's a funny story, isn't it? Success story on part of Chinese business, and also a funny story that this monstrous looking creature, imaginable creature, by the way, is becoming a sensation of the modern times. And that's it. That's it, dear friends. I will end this update on this Labubu stuff. Labubus, man. Okay, dear friends, this is it. Uh, there was a donation on a boosted, dear friends. So highlight. Let me highlight this donation. Because of the sound issues, by the way. I mean, these initial sound issues derailed their program. Actually, I don't know. I have to deal with this stuff somehow. You think it was a StreamYard issue? I don't know. I mean, I connected there as I always do. Okay. So let me highlight the answer. This is not the one. That's it. Malina, thank you very much for 387 rubles donation. This is a $5 donation. I appreciate your support and attention. Thank you. And dear friends, I'll take a couple of minutes to react on some questions or the comments that will be directed to me. So, yes, dear friends, I can see your comments now when you were warning me about sound, but unfortunately, things happened sometime. Hopefully tomorrow there gonna be no issues. I'm scrolling now fast, dear friends. So if I spot question, then I will react on it. If not, then let's end today's stream on that. Hopefully tomorrow there gonna be no technical issues, and I'll be more concentrated on a stream. Very interesting comment from Alexander here. Blacker, the opioid epidemic is there to harvest organs. I never, I'm gonna be honest, Alexander, I never thought about this potential connection. They are basically killing people to harvest their organs. One might actually see this connection if you take in account how evil those people are that are operating in that field, right? And it's a Western ruling class, but let's be real, it's a Western ruling class. Remember, first bigger massive stories about organ harvesting break in Kosovo, isn't it? when these Albanian terrorists were killing people and selling their organs, right? And at one point, one of the top criminals in this criminal ring, become even a president of the so-called Kosovo. And who was in charge of Kosovo, by the way? Kosovo then and Kosovo now is our biggest NATO military base, right? And who controls NATO? Western ruling class. So drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, and organs trafficking, by the way, is definitely something that Western ruling class is overseas for sure. And they are evil, by the way, of course, and they definitely are well capable of orchestrating opioid epidemic in US to then basically harvest the organs from people that will overdose or die. Some organs, by the way, I guess may not be fatally affected with the drugs as some others do and can be harvested. So I never thought about such a potential connection, Alexandria, but I definitely see such possibility for sure. Western elites are evil, by the way. There is nothing human about them, right? So they are capable of any atrocities, man, and they are disgusting. That's it, man. They are enemies of all of us. It does not matter you live in US, in France, in China, India, Japan, or Russia. Western elites, so-called elites, and their assets, by the way, that they have all over the world, they are our main enemies, right? They are existential threat. Steve is asking if your enemy uses robot soldiers, is Russia ready for this? It depends what you call a robot, Steve. Drones already being used, including not just aerial drones, but ground drones, already being used quite extensively on the battlefield by both sides. By both sides, so it's already happening, by the way, right? On ground drones are quite actively used for different operations, by the way. Some drones are equipped with machine guns, some drones are equipped with explosive materials, some drones are used as an evacuating tool, right? They are getting closer to wounded military personnel and evacuating them. So ground drones already are operating. If you mean by robot as a humanoid looking robot, well, I think it's still quite far away from that point. We will reach there. We will be there. I mean, humanity, world will be there at one day when human-looking robots, gonna do their most of fighting. But and probably China will be the first country that will have actual units of humanoid robots. But I don't think we're going to see anything like that in this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. Technologies are not quite there yet, but we are getting close to that point. Oh, it's horrible stuff. Alexandria is also commenting, Luan, lately in Kentucky, an OD dude woke up with them digging for his organs. I mean, this is terrifying. What you are telling us is absolutely terrifying. I'm telling you, I mean, Western elites are enemies of all of humanity. That's it, man. We cannot compromise with this type of enemy that has no humanity in it, right? That's the whole point that I'm constantly trying to emphasize that everybody who thinks they can negotiate with this evil force that Western ruling elites are, they are mistaken. They are making grave mistake. And they are also not just them making mistake, but also uh, confusing others, right? You cannot negotiate with this evil force that Western elites are, man. And either they will kill us all one day, or somehow we have to take them out. That's how it is, man. It's like water and the fire. We cannot live together, us ordinary humans, right? Human civilization and them, the so-called elites, by the way, because I mean, let's think about it. For at least 500 years, by the way, at least 500 years, those criminal clans, we can call them a European aristocracy, Western aristocracy, royalties, and financial clans that were serving them, Rothschilds or whatever. For hundreds of years, these these criminal families and criminal clans were passing their wealth and their influence from generation to generation and generation, right? And now modern representatives of the Western ruling class, these are absolute, by the way, absolute maximum of degeneration that human can undergo. There is nothing human in them. I'm 100% convinced in that, right? And you know, these are people that always had their everything their way for generations and generations, right? And they don't know what is respect, what is their interests of others, none of it. All they know is what they want. That's it. And they will get what they want by any means. If they have to sacrifice million people, they don't care. If they have to sacrifice 100 million people, they don't care. If they have to sacrifice everybody, they still don't care. That's it, man. So let's be real here. Either we will, neutralize them, or they're going to neutralize us. And they will take time, by the way. They will take time because for them, humanity is a opportunity of harvesting. Not just organs, but they see humans as resources, right? For how much and how long they can use each individual. They are creating these systems to basically use you, right? Because no matter how effective you think you are in your life, most of their proceeds from your success will go to them. That's how system is built, by the way, right? That's it. Mickey is commenting that China is well ahead in this field of robotics, humanoid robotics, to be more precise. And I agree with you, Mickey. I have seen some videos, by the way, on the internet when these humanoid robots are doing some tasks, by the way, that human will struggle to do, right? They're doing some acrobatics and they're moving on the difficult terrain, harsh terrain, actually, and it is impressive. It is impressive. So therefore, I think in next 5 to 10 years, Chinese military is probably going to be the first ones that will actually have a humanoid robots in their inventory. Entire units, by the way, that can carry assault rifles, or grenade launchers, machine guns, or simultaneously at once. By the way, right? Air defense systems, close range air defense systems, everything else, and they will be built from titanium, let's say, right? And if it's gonna be hard to take them out. And yes, once China, and this is gonna become a thing for all other armies that will manage to afford this technology, of course. But yes, you are absolutely on point. China seems to me are like way ahead in this field. Dear friends, let's end this little chaotic live stream. If I may, my apologies that time to time I might uh, lose the focus on the news. Maybe I did not maybe I did use French on quite a few occasions, and I apologize for that. I'm always unhappy with myself whenever this happens. Uh, and so yes, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your attention and support. Have a wonderful day, and if let's say if I manage, I'll try to make some extra content for Patreon and Boosty also today and every day. By the way, that's my goal, to have extra content on Patreon and Boosty, extra exclusive content on daily basis. So hopefully I will manage to do it. So this is it, dear friends. Have a wonderful day. My apologies for uh, being emotional at some points. I'm going to work on myself not to allow this to happen. And yes, this is it. Have a wonderful day and take care. See you tomorrow. And if you are a subscriber on Patreon and Boosty, probably I'll see you today. Bye for now.